Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be talking about an update to the assignments that is based on a discussion from our last class. And that was based on some feedback that was provided on the Stop Start Continues that we did a couple of classes ago. So this video is intended to provide some clarity around the update. If you didn't get a chance to attend the class, or if you want to review some of our discussion, please feel free to check out the recording of the Adobe Connect session, which is posted on the Lesson 9 page. So in terms of what we talked about, just a quick review, I had received some feedback regarding the assignments and the amount of work from the group, and so I proposed two different options for dealing with this. The first one was to keep the current option, but to shift the due date for some of the reports in the papers so that they were a little bit later. So that you can see option number one. The second option was for us to do a little bit of a modification to actually not eliminate but merge the web-based learning object report with the web-based learning tool review paper and to shift some of the dates. So not surprisingly, the option that was most popular was option number two. And so we actually had almost a 100% majority vote on option number two. So this is the option that we are going with. What does this mean? This means a couple of things. First, we're combining those two papers and we're allocating some marks to the sharing. So what you can see is the web-based learning object sharing will be done on Tuesday, June 16th and will be worth 30 marks. Then the web-based learning object report will be due on Friday, June 19th, and it will be also worth 30 marks, and this accounts for the remaining 60 marks in the course. Now, I want to emphasize to you that what we've done here is actually merge the two reports rather than just get rid of the web-based learning tool review completely, and so there is some information in this video that talks a little bit about updated information for both the sharing and for the report. So let's talk about the sharing. Now, sharing is caring, as you know. So what we will do on Tuesday, June 16th, is each individual will be responsible for presenting their web-based learning object. This presentation will be worth 30 marks. And as you can see at the bottom, the evaluation for the presentation will be a combination of peer, self, and instructor assessment. Now, because I'm not going to be able to see all of the presentations, I'm going to ask you to submit your presentation assets to the web-based learning object sharing submission box, which will be in Blackboard. And this will allow me an opportunity to review the documents that you shared with your groups during your presentation. Each individual will have 20 minutes to do their presentation, and we're going to allocate pretty much the entire 3 hours of class to these presentations, and I will do my best to make the groups small sizes, not small sizes, but 3 groups of even sizes, so there'll be between 7 and 8 individuals in each presentation group. So in a total of 20 minutes, it's going to take up just over 2 hours to go through the presentations. So what you're going to be asked to do is bring your popcorn. No, you're going to be asked as an individual to present the following items. Now, these are not in the specific order that I want you to present it in. That's entirely up to you, but these are the things I'm going to ask you to cover during your presentation. Number one, you're going to be asked to present your web-based learning object, and I'd like you to give people an opportunity to play with the object. So how much time this takes out of your 20 minutes is entirely up to you. You have to figure out how long it would take somebody to play with your object. They do not need to complete the object in its entirety, but they should have sufficient amount of time to explore the object and all of its different elements. I would also like you to discuss the following items. The first one is, what is the problem or the concept that you addressed? So this could be your specific curricular problem, or perhaps a concept, whether it be a mathematical concept, a literacy concept, whatever it is that you're exploring. You're going to talk a little bit about that. I'd also like you to talk about the tools that you used during the process. Now, the level of detail that you go into is going to be dependent on the number of tools that you used, as well as how much time you want to allocate to this section. But at the very least, I'd like you to be able to identify the tools that you use, provide a brief description of what the tool is and what it does, and perhaps provide a link to your peers where they can be able to access the tool if it's something that they're interested in. The third thing I want you to address and talk about is your development and deployment process. So this is the steps that you went through in order to develop the tool, and talk a little bit about what you did to test to see whether or not the object, sorry, I just said tool, bad, Sean. You're talking about the development of your web-based learning object, not the tool, and the process that you went through to deploy it. The next thing I'd like you to talk about is some of your successes and challenges. Now, most of the time people leave this till the end, but you can, again, play with the order of it. But essentially what you're doing here is talking about your key learning. What were the things that you really learned from this process? It's been a very intense process, and you've probably learned a lot more than you may think you've learned. So this is a reflection on your learning where you can talk a little bit about your successes and challenges. The last thing I'd like you to do in your presentations is to collect some feedback. And what this means is getting feedback from the group on your artifact. Now, how you do that is entirely up to you. Your group will be doing a feedback form on your presentation, and a part of that feedback form is a little bit about your web-based learning object itself. However, you're welcome and encouraged to get feedback in any format you like. So you can just ask some questions and do a discussion about it, or you could send out your own form. It's entirely up to you. But the idea here is that you get some feedback from your group on the presentation. The feedback should be meaningful and go beyond, wow, you're awesome. So try and get some positive and constructive feedback and format it in a way that's going to help you. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and I do apologize for the length of the video, but I'm trying to be as clear and concise as I can, is the report. So this web-based learning object is now a combination of the web-based learning object report and the web-based learning tool review paper. It is worth 30 marks, and I have included a lot more detail in the web-based learning object design challenge page, but I wanted to just give you an overview of the different sections that you'll be talking about in your report. So the first section would be an introduction section, and this is where you're just going to introduce the paper, what you're talking about, and the concept or the problem that you have addressed in your web-based learning object. The second section is where you'll talk about pedagogy, and so this is where you're talking about the rationale for the deployment, the development of your web-based learning object, which would also include a discussion of the context in which the web-based learning object will be deployed. The third section is where you discuss the technology and the tools that you used in the development of your web-based learning object. Now, this is perhaps a point where I want to emphasize some clarification. This is a merger of the web-based learning object report and the web-based learning tool review. So this is why you'll be talking about the tools that you use. So there'll be more than one. And so what we're looking for here, very similar to your presentation, is an overview of the tool, its history, the context in which it's currently used, its function, and the reason why you picked this tool over perhaps another tool. Again, these details are on the WBLO Design Challenge page. The next section you're going to have in your report is a reflection on the process. So this is where you'll be discussing the development and deployment, very similar again to your presentation, but in much more depth. And the focus here is on your key learning. What are the key things that you learned through your experience, and perhaps talk about your successes as well as your challenges. People tend to only talk about the challenges in this section. But I do want you to talk a little bit about the things that you felt went well. The last section is going to be a conclusion where you summarize the project overall and make recommendations and considerations for future development. So this can be, if you were to engage in this process again, what would you do differently? Or if somebody else was to come to you for advice and they were engaging in this project, what would be your advice? Okay. Now, I will be posting a rubric that will be used for the assessment of the web-based learning object on the Design Challenge page. That will be posted at the end of this week, and that will provide you with more detail. However, the rubric is basically just going to be each of these sections graded on a 4-point scale. And in addition to that, there will be an assessment component of the paper that has to do with your writing and your formatting. And just as a point of clarification, yes, the paper needs to be formatted in APA, and all references that are used within the paper need to be formatted accordingly. So again, I want to emphasize that I appreciate your feedback on these assignments, and the revision that I have made is primarily in response to your feedback. And so what I'm trying to do here is to, place emphasis on the work that you've been doing. I really do appreciate all the work that you've been doing. This video has just been a brief meaning less than 15 minutes overview, but I'd like you to take a look at the Web-Based Learning Object Design Challenge page for more details. The link is right there. So that's it for this summary. If you have any questions, please post them as a comment on the Web-Based Learning Object Design Challenge page, and I'll do my best to reply in kind. Have a wonderful day or night, depending on when you watch this.